Okay, let's look at 6 disadvantages of online experiments. The first is lack of control over participant circumstances. You don't know what the participant is doing, and so perhaps they are taking the experiment while they are in a car and they're taking it on their phone and not paying much attention. Maybe they are talking with somebody else, and maybe somebody else is even taking the survey for them and they're just holding it and logging in. You don't know what is going on. So there is a lack of control over participant circumstances. You also have a problem of some may participate more than once, and SurveyMonkey has tried to get around that, and if you pay the extra fee, you can get SurveyMonkey's system for saying that people can only participate once. Now that is, they use a cookie that they drop in, so you take it and you can take it once, and if you try to take it again, the cookie identifies you as having taken it before. You don't even know what's going on, but there's some problems with that because you cannot take it if you don't allow cookies, so that is a problem. You eliminate some people, and you may have a situation where several people may be using the same computer. Maybe your roommate also wants to take it, and that they may not be able to take it because they would not be able to take it because the cookie would say this machine has been used once. Number 3, participants are self-selected. Now, what harm could this be? Well, if you have a survey online, an experiment, and it says this is going to be about race cars. Well, I have a friend who loves race cars. He would definitely take that survey. I don't mind watching the Indianapolis 500 once a year, but for the most part, I never watch the whole thing. I try to get there for the last 5 minutes. But I would probably not take a survey on race car drivers or race cars. So participants are self-selected. People you may get as a pool only people who like that topic. And maybe, so that doesn't represent the whole universe of people. So that is a big problem. Questions from subjects are not possible. You may have a question on a question if you're taking the survey, and you can't ask anyone about it. In tests, if I give a test, we always talk about if you have a question, raise your hand, and I'll come out and talk to you about that particular question. And that's a good thing to do. You can't actually do that with online experiments. Technical problems occur. This has happened to me when I was doing online experiments. I told people that it would take 3 minutes to take a survey. And somebody complained to me, they said it took 25 minutes because everything loaded so slow. That was a problem with SurveyMonkey it was a while ago. That was, I believe it was 20 years ago when SurveyMonkey was just starting out. We had to use clay tablets. It was so long ago. No, I'm just kidding. We didn't use clay tablets, but it was a while ago. There were technical problems. That happened several times. They actually gave it to me for free one time because they had a lot of problems and couldn't. They said they were supposed to send it off at noon automatically, and it didn't get set off for several hours later, and I told everybody it was going to come at noon, so that was a problem, and they gave me a discount that time too, and now they've worked all that out, but technical problems can occur. And finally, the dropout rate may be greater because it is easier to drop out. If you are in a group and everybody is taking that, and you open it up and you decide, I don't think I want to take this, you're less likely to just walk out after a minute, after a second, then you might be online because nobody's watching you, and maybe you're anonymous, but in any case, there's not pressure for you to drop out. So a lot of times people drop out very quickly, and so that is a disadvantage of online experiments. Now let's look at 2 threats to validity for online experiments. The first, an online experiment may be online for a long time. So if you have a survey that you've put online, maybe it is out there for a couple of weeks. And this allows the threat of history. Now, what that means is that something could happen that could affect how people start answering those questions. It could change their perception. Another time where this happened to me, I was in Baton Rouge. I was doing at a big, I think it was $27,000 that had been given to me to do this experiment, and so I had it was not mine, but it was some funding, and so I did a thing on crime. I was doing an online experiment, and while it was partly up, there was a situation where there was a serial killer in Baton Rouge. Became known as the Baton Rouge serial killer, and I've got to tell you, I was very nervous, and it was right around our neighborhood, and we sewed our curtains shut and didn't go out after dark. And eventually they caught the person, but it was a scary time. So now the people taking that online, what are they going to think? All of a sudden, maybe their perception of crime changes from when we started, and so that can change answers that people would normally have. So if events may affect how participants respond. So you have to pay attention to how those events take place. That's happened to me several times when I've been doing research, and over a period of time, and something happens in relation to the research you're doing. One time it happened in relation, I was doing some research on cigarette smoking and cigarette advertising, and there was a big lawsuit that broke on the news. It was the first time a cigarette company had lost a lawsuit to a smoker, a big thing, and it was concerning that would damage the validity of what I was doing. Number two, external validity may suffer. Now, external validity is how much the results represent the real world. So if you are getting people who are on the computer browsing the internet, those people may not represent the real world. I was doing a review this week, and they had a company they used, and I did not know they paid people to do the surveys. They said it was representative, but it was difficult to tell if it really was, and so I was concerned that they would not the results wouldn't represent the real world. What was the name of the company? It was called NowGov, which is a big company started in the UK and is also in the United States as well. Now, the internet audience may not represent the real world. Now, I'm not saying it's wrong to watch Tiger King. If it's wrong, I don't want to be right. Actually, I did watch Tiger King. I feel bad about that now. I didn't watch the extra episodes. I thought by the end they were going to have a happy ending and kind of talk about how the lions had been freed or something like that. And there wasn't. It was just it was a shipwreck. So, but maybe people who watch that, I know a lot of people, including some members of my family, who would not watch it. So sometimes, if you're watching, if you're in a certain place where a survey is present, other people may not be there, and that might make your survey less like what the real world would represent in a survey of a random survey. Now, people who use an internet site may have different characteristics than the general population. And what people who do online surveys are counting on is that they will have the same characteristics. If you have your survey at different places, you don't really know why people are going to be going those places. Maybe it's a gaming place and you will get people who go for gaming. Maybe it's a place for karaoke, or maybe that's why people are in that particular area. You don't know why people are using a place, and those are extreme examples, but it may change the character of the people you get to do that